Someone at dinner asks what's next for you, and you give the answer you've learned to give. The certification you might do, the city you might move to, the bigger thing waiting somewhere up ahead. Everyone nods. The conversation moves on. But later, driving home, you catch yourself thinking something you would never say at that table. I don't want a next. You want a small life, a quiet one, a few people who actually know you, work that's fine, evenings that belong to you. Enough. And before you can even finish the thought, something in you steps in and calls it settling. Here's the strange part. You can want that life and be ashamed of the wanting at the same time. When you picture it, it feels like relief. When you picture other people knowing it's all you want, it feels like a confession. And notice the asymmetry. Nobody has ever asked you to justify your ambition, not once. But wanting less, that apparently requires a defense. So this video isn't really asking whether the quiet life is good. It's asking a stranger question. Why does wanting it feel like something you need permission for? If that guilt is familiar, it isn't laziness, and it isn't a lack of drive. It might be one of the more honest signals you have. Because notice, you don't feel guilty about wanting the things you were raised to want. Guilt shows up at the border, the exact point where what you want stops matching what you were told to want. The shame isn't random, it's a map. It marks the spot where your life and your script disagree. And you're not standing at that border alone. One widely cited survey found only around 6% of Gen Z say they actually want to be leaders. Surveys like that are blunt instruments, but the direction keeps repeating. A very large number of people are quietly renegotiating what a life is for, and feeling vaguely ashamed of it, mostly alone, mostly at night. Psychology has a name for part of this. It's called contingent self-worth, when your sense of being acceptable is tied to conditions. Hit the milestone and you're allowed to feel okay. Miss it and your okayness is suspended. Pending review. In plain language, worth on a payment plan. Where does the payment plan come from? Somewhere along the way, most of us installed an audience. Parents first, then teachers, then a feed. And research on social comparison suggests we don't just perform for the audience. We learn what to want by watching what they applaud. Desire is contagious. You catch it from the room you're standing in. Which means some of your ambitions were never decisions. They were downloads. That may explain part of the guilt, but be careful with it. It doesn't mean every ambition is fake, and it doesn't mean the quiet life is your one true self, waiting to be freed. It means something narrower. When you imagine a small life and feel shame, at least some of that shame is the audience's voice, not yours. Underneath all of this sits a rule almost nobody says out loud, which is exactly how rules like this survive. A life must be impressive to be justified. You can hear its dialect everywhere. Reach your potential. Don't waste your talent. What's next? Growth, always growth, as if a person were a quarterly report. And here's the uncomfortable, honest part. The rule isn't stupid. Ambition is one of the ways strangers cooperate. It built the hospital you were born in. It has pulled real people out of real poverty. A world where nobody wanted to build anything would be a worse world. And that deserves to be said plainly. But notice what the rule quietly did on its way in. It stopped being an invitation and became a minimum. Impressive stopped being one way to live and became the entry fee for being taken seriously. And a rule that useful almost never announces itself as a rule. It just feels like reality. So, is wanting a small life wisdom, or is it hiding? Both answers have serious defenders, and both deserve their strongest form. 2,300 years ago, a philosopher named Epicurus bought a garden outside Athens, moved in with his friends, and spent the rest of his life arguing that this was the whole point. His slogan was 2 words: live unnoticed. His claim wasn't that ambition is evil. It was that most of it is fear wearing a costume, that we chase status because we're terrified of insignificance. And the chase has no finish line, because every achievement resets into the new minimum the moment you touch it. The garden, the friends, the bread, the conversation. He didn't think that was the consolation prize. He thought it was the prize. But here's the other side, at full strength. Sometimes, I just want a quiet life is not peace. It's flinching. It's the fear of finding out what you could have been, dressed up as contentment. And humans do seem to need to grow, to use their capacities on something that resists them. Even the need to be seen isn't vanity. Being recognized by people who matter to you is part of how a self stays real. A quiet life can be a garden. It can also be a hiding place. And from the outside, sometimes from the inside, they look identical. Both of these are true somewhere. Which one is true tonight, in you? No video can tell you that. But there's a test that helps. Ask which of your desires would survive if nobody could ever see the results. No announcement, no reaction. Nobody ever finding out. Some ambitions survive that test. Those are probably yours. Some evaporate instantly. Those were the audiences. Here's where this channel actually lands. The size of a life was never the problem. Authorship is. A big life and a small life can both be chosen, and both can be defaults you slid into. Ambition turns corrosive at a specific point, when it stops serving something you value and starts functioning as proof that you deserve to exist. And modesty turns corrosive at a symmetrical point, when it stops being a preference and starts being fear with better branding. Which means the question, am I allowed to want an unimpressive life, has a bug in it. The bug is allowed. That word means the permission structure is still running. You're still submitting the request to the audience and waiting. You don't need permission. You need authorship. And the honest work, whether it ends up making your life bigger or smaller, is finding out what you would build with no one watching. One caveat, because it matters. Choosing a small life is easier when the rent doesn't argue back. Some people's ambition is survival, not applause. And for them, want less is an insult, not wisdom. If that's you, the question isn't invalid. It's just further away right now. That's a fact about circumstances. It is not a fact about your depth as a person. So, something small to try if you want. Tonight, write down one thing you would still want if it could never be posted, mentioned, or measured. You don't have to act on it. You don't have to renounce anything. Just let one unwitnessed want exist on paper, in your handwriting, in daylight. It will feel strangely exposing. That's the permission structure noticing it wasn't consulted. And if what's on the paper turns out to be small, a garden, a craft, a Tuesday that repeats, then maybe hold it the way you'd hold anything alive. Because perhaps the real question was never whether you're allowed to want an unimpressive life. Perhaps it's why a human life ever had to impress anyone. To count.